that opportunity. Now, Charles Barkley, it was fantastic. I love him. He doesn't care what you or I think. He says what he thinks. Sometimes he may be wrong or we may disagree with him. Charles Barkley on 60 Minutes on NCAA or college basketball. It's a travesty and a disgrace. I'm so mad now. How can we mess something up that's so beautiful? We can't pay all of these players. In the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to have 25 schools that's going to dominate the sport because they can afford players, and these schools that can't afford or won't pay players are going to be irrelevant. Now, there's part of what he says, maybe you agree with him. Who are the teams in the Final Four?
I mean, there's only 2 of them that I know that would be, rolling. I mean, UConn is probably rolling out some NIL money for basketball players. I mean, that's a blue blood program. It would shock me if they're not doing that. And we know about Miami, but look, the NIL at FAU and San Diego State is obviously not that big, but this is still early in that process.
There are no McDonald's All-Americans and 0 top 30 recruits in this weekend's Final Four.
Yeah, that's really crazy. I mean, this is one of the strangest ones. Now, you say it's strange, but we do have, UConn is in it, and UConn's won multiple national titles before. So, I mean, that's a school that can get there pretty quickly.
I think we got to get past the COVID year before we start declaring that this is the way things are. Where, oh, no, this is always going to be how it is now because of the transfer portal, that you're going to have your San Diego States super veteran-laden lining up in the Final Four, or FAU for that matter. I don't think you can't compare football and basketball straight up. That's a different animal as far as the amount of money, the number of players, and things like that. I do think NIL does allow some other schools to have opportunities that they maybe wouldn't otherwise, talent speaking. But I do think this is as much having super veteran senior squad rosters from the COVID year as much as it is the NIL piece of this thing.
Yeah, probably. I mean, there's the NIL piece is still, again, really, really early. Yeah, Miami probably, was able to, improve on what they did last year, which was a nice run with getting Nigel Pack and some of the other guys and shoring that up. And UConn probably already had it. But, yeah, when everybody there's 23, I mean, it's a different thing than it's been in a long, long time.
And I don't think it's coincidence that all these schools have similar traits. They're not one team's a bunch of freshmen and one team's it's all super veteran teams that are in this Final Four and have benefited from deep benches and having 6th-year guys who have been in the fire and all of that. So that's been a blessing, but I'm not one that believes that this year is an example of how it's going to be. And this is see? It's not that bad. This is going to be like this. Look, there's shots for the little guy and all of that. I do wonder if this isn't just a little glimpse into, the reason that it's like that is because of the older guys that are around and older girls for that matter on the other side of the coin. But as far as Barkley's comments go, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think that's kind of everybody's concern, and it's interesting to hear, a bigger personality like him who's closely attached to the game, even though he's mostly NBA, but, pops in for college basketball, especially this time of year, and I think he's just saying what everybody's afraid of and feels like it's probably going to happen eventually, and, there's a lot of different ways you can go with that argument, but I don't think he's all the way wrong. I don't know that he's all the way right either.
Well, he said that, and he mentioned it. He also made a comment about Kevin Durant. Did you guys see the interview by any chance?
No, I did not.
Made a comment about Kevin Durant, who got mad at Barkley because he was talking about how he's overly sensitive. And he said, we now are in an age where athletes just feel like they are above being criticized, that they're so protected and they're so in a cocoon that any kind of criticism sends them, they just won't speak to you anymore. And I don't know if I've really experienced that myself, even at the college level. Don't cover as much pro sports as I used to, but I think you could see that. I think you could see that trend right now. And Kevin Durant, all-time great, Hall of Famer, won an NBA title. There's argument about that title he won with the Warriors. He was part of them winning the title. Of course, he gets the ring, even though you had some who were the foundation of what Golden State became with Curry and Draymond and others as well.
Yeah, I've never understood I mean, I know that there are, I mean, like in other walks of life and in the sports media, there's these guys too. But like, as far as your normal like beat writers, like I never got, like Kevin Durant got really mad at the media in Oklahoma City a few times when he was there. And I never understood that. Or, you know, people, sometimes people, I mean, yes, if you write a column criticizing a team and you're a columnist, yeah, that's one thing. Sometimes I think, especially professional athletes that are ones that are so in that bubble, take just questions as criticisms when there's not really a criticism. It's just a question on why are you doing things this way or why is this happening? And so I think that's just part of our, you know, our world. And it kind of always has been. It's just worse now because there's a lot more media than there used to be. You know, used to be for most sports teams, your professional sports teams, you know, if you're not in New York and you're not playing for the Yankees or the Giants or, you know, you're not in Boston or one of these crazy markets, you know, you play for the Rangers, there's like 6 beat writers that come and see you, and then there's some TV guys. But even in a big city like Dallas, there's not a whole lot of people you have to worry about. Now, Cowboys a little bit different, but then you know, if you got traded from the Rangers to the Yankees, then that quadruples overnight. And so you think, oh my God, I'm in this cage. But yeah, I've never understood why people think somebody's out to get them when they're asking them questions.
Yeah, I don't know about Charles and Kevin Durant, their whole back and forth and ongoing saga. I could really not care any less about it. But I will say, I mean, yeah, there's some point that Charles is making that's true. I think everybody's just a lot less I think everybody's desensitized and somehow more sensitive than ever, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre, but I think that's, you know, part COVID lockdowns. I think that's just the way of the world's working with technology. I think, you know, we're just in a very weird time period. But yeah, I think that's probably the way I would sum it up is everybody's more sensitive than ever and more desensitized than ever. At the same time, if you're Kevin Durant, you're not just growing up when like the dude with a cigar who covers the Yankees is writing his Sunday, you know, article on you and hammering. This is all the time. It's anytime he probably turns on TV, an NBA show. Kevin Durant, he's hurt, he's this, his son's, blah, blah, blah. I mean, anytime he can't go on Twitter and look at his mentions without getting, 5,000 daily messages about how much he sucks or whatever or how great he is. And, yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier said than done to be in Charles's shoes from the 90s when you guys basically were non-existent if you weren't on TV. Like, nobody was following you around. There might be some paparazzi shots of Charles out, you know, whatever. But we know for a daggone fact, all this crap happening with John Morant, you mean to tell me that Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley in the TMZ era wouldn't have been caught at some strip club or some poker game or some whatever?
Oh, they would have been caught there.
They got to deal with so much more crap than the dudes in the 90s dealt with. And I'm a 90s guy. But, you know, you talk about people being sensitive. You'd be a little bit more sensitive, too, if you grew up in the way that you're just able to be touched by anybody at any time at any given moment unless you just block out all electronics. And maybe that's what Kevin Durant should do more often than not.
Well, he's on Twitter a lot.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. And I will say that, yeah, he's probably a little too sensitive for somebody who likes to check out things about himself. But, yeah, I think it's just there's a disconnect, old guy, young guy, and it's nothing more than that, really. It's nothing more special than that being the case with the guy from the 80s and a guy from the 90s. You know, it's
old
just
man,
this
get off my
era's
lawn. Yeah.
version of it. Charles is the old guy barking now. Kevin Durant will one day be that guy, too, talking about, like, LeBron's kid or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way that it goes, so it's not that big of a deal.
Here's the actual quote from Barkley on Durant. He's very sensitive, great player. He's part of that generation who think he can't be criticized. He's never looked in the mirror and said, man, is that a fair criticism? Kevin Durant responded soon afterwards on his Twitter feed, this ain't getting tiring, Chuck. I'll never respect the words that come out of your mouth. Fam, just deal with it. That's what he said.
Yeah. I mean, look, they're not going to get along. And Kevin Durant is a unique dude. I mean, he's different and strange.
He's got 21 million people who follow him.
Look, I mean, and he's entitled to feel that way. I want to go back to one thing that Charles said about there's going to be 25 teams that dominate everything. Well, that's the way we're letting America go, right? Where there's no checks and balances on people getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's just how it's going to be for the schools that have money, right? When's there going to be a check and balance on that?
Never.
There's. I mean,
it's out the barn. The barn, hay's out of the barn.
Yeah, unless there's a huge Teddy Roosevelt like trust busting reckoning coming. It's not happening anywhere else. So why would it happen in college athletics? It's not gonna. I mean, so what they'll have to smartly do is you got to figure out your place. And what's going to be sad is that they're going to be sports that go away. They're just going to be gone. As far as
somebody sent me a text early this morning that mentioned how there may be a trend towards more esports.
Yeah, I mean,
that's been taught. I mean, I don't know if there's really a huge market there for universities, though. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, e-leagues do fine, and some streamers make lots of money, but that doesn't mean you just put together
So,
teams and it
do I-
clicks and you.
do I need to get a student playing video games all day? I mean,
I mean, they do. Some of them do
Yeah.
anyways, and handle it just fine. But I mean, yeah, I don't think that's like the key to unlocking magic revenue streams. Is what I'm saying. I don't
Yeah.
think that's like
No,
the
I
next
get it.
football that's going to be, your big feather in your cap that comes saves the day. I mean, what schools are cutting sports? The ones that aren't going to be in certain leagues.
yeah.
But with the Big Ten going to cut sports, they can't cut sports. They have no excuse to cut sports. SEC has no excuse to cut sports. So they're not cutting anything. I don't think that, the Big 12, the Pac-12, any of them are looking to cut sports, but, maybe that's a possibility. I mean, we can go doomsday scenario, but it's the way it's going regardless. So if that's a byproduct of that, then the people in charge are the ones that, are going to be accountable for that. But, what level of accountability is there? I don't know. I just think it is what it is. Like that, like you said, the hay's out of the barn. So any hope that like somehow magically it's going to change and it's going to be fair and equal for everybody, it's not realistic. So, determine how you can best navigate that. I know it's what people like Mac Rhodes are trying to figure out at Baylor. Like they can't pay people the way Texas can pay people or Oklahoma can pay people and even still, even if they could, there's already other advantages those schools have just built up over time. So, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be some disadvantage, but now it's just probably a bit greater than it was before. But to what extent, I don't think anybody truly knows. But that's why you got to figure out your 10-year plan, your 20-year plan, your 30-year plan, and figure out where you fit in amongst all that.
The text from the 858, football anyone? Nope.